Hello, everyone. It is Jennie and Laurie of Astropath, and we're here today to do the horoscopes for October. We are really focusing in on one period of time during October, which is between October 20th and 29th. There's a lot of interesting things that go into that period of time, and we'll cover that in a second. Before we do that, let's just say thank you for being here. Please subscribe, please like, please give us messages, please share us, all of that so that other people can find us as well. Anything else? Check out our websites. We both have other offerings. Okay.
That's
So we're
right.
going to just blast into this, I think. Anything else you want to say before?
Just I'll put the links for my workshops that are ongoing. I'm just inviting and encouraging people to join me for my monthly workshop. So,
Yeah.
but everything else is great. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
So yeah,
join Jennie for those. And if you're interested in natal astrology, please pick up a copy of my book, How to Read and Interpret a Natal
yes,
Chart. Okay, you want to open up the calendar itself?
yeah. So what we're gonna do today is talk about the October horoscopes. And we have chosen a significant period of time to talk about. Rather than giving a whole synopsis of the whole month, we're going to focus in on this really interesting and powerful period that's happening from October 20th until the 29th. And essentially, in a nutshell, what we have here is it starts with Mercury conjuncting Mars in Scorpio right before the Libra new moon. So that's in a dark moon. And then the Libra moon starts, and then the sun moves into Scorpio. And after that, you have this grand trine that forms between Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn, and then a couple days later between Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So this whole period of time taken together really is dropping us into this deep, watery, emotional space. And
Mhm.
in this time, even the moon is in Scorpio for a couple of these days. So we have 7 planets at one point in water signs. So we felt it very important that we share this period of time with you and encourage you to take advantage of this. And I'm just going to pause there. And Laurie, what do you have to throw in there for what we're talking about this video?
Well, it's really interesting because a grand trine is just a free flow of energy. And with it being in water, the energy that we're talking about is emotion. And we
Yeah.
can all get scared of our emotions and want to run away and shut the door. And the reality here is that we've been, before we come into this trine, we've been in a pretty intellectual space. And following this period of time, we're also going to be in a pretty intellectual space. So if you think about this grand trine as an opportunity to anchor all this intellect into deep feeling, deep emotion, to anchor it in a way that it can support us because, all of the elements are important. All of the elements need to work together. And intellect without emotion can go way off the rail. And we could have a 2 hour conversation about that. But suffice it to say, we need to drop in the midst of all this air, of all this intellect, it's really, this provides us an opportunity to gather our feelings, feel our feelings, and have that as a support going forward.
Yes. Yeah, nicely put. Yeah, it is interesting. So, in other words, this is an opportunity to really drop out of the head where we've been spinning out with, Venus is in Libra and it does this air grand trine with all these air planets, Uranus and Pluto and so on, and really buzzing around in the head. And, that's the mind space is the great place of imagination and so on. But then it drops us into the body, into the emotions, which is where the body lives. And it's so important to connect these two. In fact, that symbol going from air to water, this is where the healing is. This is where we join the mind and the body. This is what we're doing. And this grand trine in water really gives you an opportunity to see your feelings, see your emotions, and see them for the anchoring that they can be, and to recognize that our feelings are part of the most ancient part of ourselves as human beings. Like they're part of the limbic brain, which is the oldest part of us. So this is really a reminder of the importance of feelings. And also, feelings bring us into healing. It's the healing space. It's the place where we can emotionally bond with other people, where we can approach with sensitivity and kindness and tenderness. And I think that that's something we all just need more and more of. And it's interesting that we have it coming from Scorpio, and we'll get more into what that looks like with the individual impacts. But this is a really important time to feel the feelings, including things like fear, digging beneath the fear into grief, to releasing those emotions. But then also into kindness and empathy. I feel like empathy is such a buzzword right now, and it's being bantered around. But empathy is nothing short of a neurobiological survival basically competency, essentially. It is something we need. And so this time period is really allowing us to see that as well. And it's going to be very interesting for all of you to see, how this lands in your chart. And if you have anything in the late degrees of water signs, so Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio, you especially will probably get hit by this trine and be able to put it to good use. So yeah, and even if you don't, just as Laurie said, this is a great time to kind of work with balancing the different elements in your chart. So yeah,
All right.
okay. What do you say?
I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, so let's go into Aries rising.
Okay. So if you have Aries rising, you come out pretty strong, you're pretty tough, you're ready to take action, but we all have this deep, intense emotion in us. Now, for you, the sun's been in Libra. We've been really focused on that intellect, like we talked about. And now, as the sun moves into Scorpio, it brings our attention into the eighth house, into Scorpio. So this is an area where you have a lot of deep, profound feelings around how you navigate those spaces where you meet with intensity with other people. Okay, where you set boundaries with others. Both Mercury and Mars are in that area, and they come together here, right at this point that starts the Grand Trine. Excuse me, I'll learn how to speak as we go. But there's some actions that you really have this need to take at this point around possibly, yeah, how you're navigating other people, how you're setting boundaries. There may be some action that you deeply, deeply feel the need to take. Now, how is that supported and how does that interact with the other planets that create this grand trine? Do you want to throw something out here, Jenny?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, what Laurie's driving at is that there's some intense emotions bubbling to the surface right now. And where are they coming from if you're an Aries rising person? They're coming from your kind of most private, hidden places. It's coming from, where Jupiter is in Cancer, your home life. There might be some stuff going on at home that's making you feel really emotional. It's coming from your 12th house where Saturn is, which you might be feeling a lot of existential, overwhelmed feelings of fear, kind of like, about what's going on in the world. You might also be, just kind of digging into your spirituality and wondering what it is that you do actually believe in and what's showing up. So these are the areas of life because of this grand trine where these emotions are bubbling up to the surface and, letting you see them. I mean, they're coming to a place where you can see them. And because you can see them, you can use them as an anchor. You can become more emotionally anchored by having an understanding of these feelings that are coming up. So rather than shy away, and especially where the Scorpio placement is, and like, oh God, I'm feeling this real intensity around my interactions with my spouse or my business partner or really anybody you come into one-on-one contact with, and you might be kind of like, oh God, well, this is a great time to lean into it and go, wow, what is coming up? What feelings am I having? And, furthermore, how does this, how are these other topics of life coming to me? What's happening with family? What's happening with spiritual beliefs? So I think when you look at it all together, that's what we're looking at is a time to embrace the feelings.
Yeah, somehow embracing your own understanding of your deep hidden feelings, how you're supported by the feelings you have toward family members and, really using that understanding to anchor how you're navigating other people. There's so much here that is about other people's
Mm,
deep feelings and how you're navigating that.
yeah. And I
Huh.
mean, in a nutshell, it's like for an Aries rising person, you've got a significant amount of force, as Laurie opened with. This is a great time to sort of draw your emotions into that personal power that you have and to be aware, to be intuitive, to trust them, and trust your ability to be empathetic and trust your ability to be
Yeah.
caring to others.
It really brings up the whole idea of emotional intelligence here,
Mm,
especially with that eighth house, because you're navigating other people's deep issues here. That's what the trigger is with that Mercury Mars
yeah,
conjunction. You're having to navigate something with other people. So yeah, leaning on what you know, your own emotional intelligence and allowing that to support you and anchor you for the upcoming period of time.
lovely.
Lovely.
Okay. All right. Let's go to Taurus rising. Okay, so let's see. Those of you who have Taurus rising, let's just start at the beginning, which is that we're talking about the time period from October 20th to October 29th, when Mercury and Mars move into Scorpio, or excuse me, conjunct in Scorpio. The sun moves into Scorpio from Libra on October 22nd. So, all of that to say that there is some intensity that's coming up around your partnerships. So, partnerships can be really, they can be a spouse, they can be a business partner, they might be a rival. Like, let's say you play tennis, your tennis rival, and it could be any one on one interaction that you have. So that's what is being illuminated. These planets are sort of triggering this emotional upwelling in this house. And because it's Scorpio, we're talking about some pretty deep stuff. Sometimes Scorpio can bring up, there might be emotions like resentment or anger or just a desire for deeper healing. It doesn't have to be sort of negative, but that's where the intensity is.
Mhm.
And those are part of this grand trine, as I saw Laurie was starting to annotate. Thank you.
Mhm.
With Saturn and Jupiter. So this is a combination of three water signs in a trine bubbling up in your chart.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I think,
it's interesting because a grand trine, we think of trines as being so positive, but it's really just a flow of energy. So you want to think about how, what you've been learning around community and how you receive from other people, how that is um, triggering or part of the story of the intensity in your relationship, as well as your how some manner in which you use your voice is really um, being expanded on an emotional level. So these are the areas that are really alive in this grand trine is your partnerships, your community, and your how you use your voice and your immediate environment of your neighborhood. So think about those are three areas that you have a great deal of emotional understanding of or possibly you're just reactive in those areas. I don't know, depending on who you are and how your life has played out. But you want to really think about your own ability to navigate your emotions in these areas and
mhm.
allow yourself to go into them. Allow yourself to feel whatever deep feelings are coming up in these areas because that's going to really anchor your understanding of who you are and how you're moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, you can think of it simply like it's your social interactions that
Yeah.
you have a lot of emotional charge around. So what's coming into play here is you are getting to see that you have a lot of emotion about combined with your social intelligence. And so this is an opportunity to say, you know what? I can really trust my feelings in my relationships. I can really lean into my intuition. I can trust that I'm going to be empathetic in my community to people who are suffering or struggling or maybe are different than me. I can also know that I am exuding a sense of care in the way that I'm communicating with other people. And that's what this grand trine is really bringing to light, is it's showing you the link between your important relationships and then the emotions underneath that support you in that actually serve as a resource, that actually help you deepen those bonds instead of keeping them sort of in a headspace. Now you're really opening to the heart space of those social relationships. So
Mhm.
I think it's important, but it also is like if you're annoyed with your spouse, you're on the right track. Like you're starting to tune into, okay, what are those emotions about? So just try to employ that curiosity about what those feelings are about, and embrace the source of anchoring that they truly are. I mean, that's essentially what we're getting across here. So
Yeah, and just understanding how they link with those other areas. It's grand
mhm.
trines are fascinating to me because they just do, they open up this flow of energy and you want to really dig into it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Right. So let's carry on then to Gemini rising.
Carry on to those of you with Gemini rising. Okay, so we are talking about October, but we are specifically talking about the period of time between October 20th and October 29th. During this period of time, Mercury and Mars conjunct in Scorpio, and right after that, we've got the sun moving into Scorpio. So there's a lot of attention being pulled into Scorpio. For you, that is your sixth house. The sixth house is the area of the chart that really represents your day-to-day lifestyle, how you take care of yourself physically, how you manage your day-to-day routines, how you take care of your body, all of those things. This is a very emotional area for you with Gemini rising. Your rising sign is Gemini, a lot of curiosity and intellect, but when we get to this area of your day-to-day routines, you've got a lot of deep, intense feelings about how you manage that area. And that's what's really being triggered at this time. We're kind of coming from a state of a lot of intellect and we're going into this deep, intense emotional state. Now, right after this, these two combine, kind of bringing so much attention to this area. A grand trine is formed between Jupiter and Saturn and the Mercury and Mars. So these are all in water signs. Now, what do the second house, the sixth house, and the 10th house have in common, Jenny?
Well, what this suggests is that there's a lot of emotion that has to do with your livelihood, your ability to meet your material needs. So your job, your profession, the routines that allow you to get to your job, and as Laurie mentioned, the healthcare and preventative routines that we all must develop. And then also, a little more internal, like the second house of how you feel about yourself. And we tend to in our society kind of join together our financial status with our feelings about ourselves. So those are the things that so you can easily see how there can be a lot of emotion about meeting material needs, especially living in a capitalist society where there's so much focus on that. But what this period of time is really informing us about is, or informing you about as a Gemini rising person, is how those emotions come into that area, and that they're actually a resource. They are part and parcel of what you're doing here. They aren't meant to be sort of
Hmm.
suppressed and carved out and separated. This is a time to embrace the information that these emotions give, the empathy, the love, the care, the support you can offer other people. That's what this is really bringing to the light, like that careful looking after of yourself and other people. And it's coming through this very material area. And I just can't, I can definitely think of a couple people with this, and yeah, boy, isn't this the truth? I mean,
Yeah.
of just how they bring that tenderness and that care through these very material, concrete things. So that's what the Grand Trine is kind of illuminating, and the trigger of the Scorpio stuff is really just giving you a spring off point of like, oh, I've got some big emotions about how I'm doing my routines right now, or how I'm eating, or oh, I'm not sleeping how I want, or with Scorpio here, I'm just gonna say it like, your elimination.
Mm.
It's very important that you can eliminate.
Mm,
So those are all issues that might be kind of, coming at you to do with the sixth house, but they're really part of this bigger picture of recognizing the power and the importance of these emotions and how they just really they bring a deeper level of connectivity,
mm.
essentially. That's what we're talking about. So, mhm.
That's interesting to think about that. I love, yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Trines are fascinating, and it's just so important to think about really understanding and allowing yourself to go into this area and see it for what it is, see it for the emotional importance of these areas. We don't think about our career or our lifestyle choices as being places that hold a lot of emotion. But if you've got Gemini rising, you really want to recognize that and accept it and allow yourself to feel it really deeply, because that at this period of time, understanding that and allowing yourself to feel that deeply is really going to help you anchor for the coming periods of time.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, the super quick version is be kind and empathetic at work and nourish yourself, get enough rest. Oh, yep. Okay.
And spend a little money
That's been
on yourself.
all right. So, Cancer rising. All right, so those of you with Cancer rising, let's just start with the idea of the sun moving from Libra to Scorpio on October 22nd, and that we're really talking about this period between actually October 20th and the 29th. October 20th is when Mercury and Mars are joined in Scorpio. So what that means is you have this real focus on your fifth house where you have Scorpio. So as a Cancer rising person, your deep, intense emotions are very much part of your creative process, and they're part of how you share love with other people. So your intensity is part of what you want to give as your gift to other people, which isn't always the most straightforward or easily understood. So, but that's part of it, and it's actually, I mean, this is really what's shining at this point in your life is what creative processes are you involved in? That's fifth house. If you have relationships with children like that, just engaging with children and feeling the deep emotion that are involved with that. And the other thing I like to think about with the fifth house is risk taking. Those risky ventures you do. I mean, it could be something like skydiving, but just, like maybe you like to climb mountains. That also comes into fifth house. So at this time, that's where the focus is on that really creative area of Scorpio as a Cancer rising person. Now, these two planets, Mars and Mercury, are also coming into a grand trine. They're forming a grand trine with Jupiter and then Saturn in very rapid succession. So you have this grand trine configuration. And I'm going to pass off to Laurie what you think that might mean in a Cancer rising chart.
Well, I think that means, first of all, as you are really kind of looking at this area of your creativity and the actions that you have to take to bring your deep emotions out creatively, you want to really lean into your own ability to show up with tenderness. And that might not always be as easy as you would think with Cancer rising. It depends on a lot of things with your chart. But it really brings in this ability to show up with tenderness and approach the world with a lot of compassion. Really thinking about that Saturn moving through the ninth house and its role in this. It's like there's so much that you're learning, and in this period of time, it's like your creativity is dependent on compassion for the outer world and showing up with your own personal tenderness and your own understanding of compassion for the world.
Yeah,
It's emotional intelligence, and bringing
yeah.
that to bear in your creativity.
Yeah, and I just think I mean, really any of the water signs as you'll see, but with Cancer rising in particular, it's like your gift you want to offer to other people is your emotional, anchoring, is your emotional content. I mean, this is your intuition, all these things, and that's ultimately what you're trying to work with. And like Laurie said, it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean you're automatically showing up as this person who can automatically deliver care and empathy. I mean, it means you've got to do a lot of work probably on it because you're walking that path. And anytime you're walking the path, it's a journey, it's a quest, so that has that feeling to it. And as a Cancer rising person, you were really here to offer nourishment, to offer protection, like kind, caring protection that the Cancer sign offers, and you're right, like with Saturn moving through the ninth house, there's this need to really dig into offering empathy, showing empathy as a worldview. So this is really the gift you have to offer the world. And this is a time period of really understanding that, and maybe choosing or trying to commit to that path on a deeper level even.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, really, really allowing yourself during this period of time to go deeply into these feelings and
Yeah.
that, really allowing that to anchor you.
Yeah, because the Jupiter in the first house is like, go rest, get some spa time, whatever. And then the Saturn in the ninth house is like, and keep digging into that wisdom,
Yeah.
and that's a source of understanding. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Carrying on to Leo rising.
Carrying on. Okay, so those of you with Leo rising, first of all, we're talking about October, but we have decided to kind of contain it. And basically, the period of time we are talking about is between October 20th and 29th, because during this period, we have a really interesting setup of a grand trine in water signs. This is a deeply emotional period of time that we're heading into. First of all, we've got Scorpio. We want to think about Scorpio because the sun has been in Libra, which is an air sign, an intellectual sign. It goes into Scorpio, which brings us into deep intensity, powerful emotion. Right at that period of time, we've got both Mercury and Mars there in Scorpio, and they come together, telling us, there's some action that needs to be taken with how we are thinking about this area of our lives. If you've got Leo rising, this is showing up in your fourth house. This is about your home, your family, your ancestry, some deep, deep inner part of you. It can even be land. I think you've talked about that a lot, Jenny, and I like thinking about that. It can be the land that you come from, the land of your ancestry. But you hold so much depth and intensity in that area of your life. And that's really where the trigger for this grand trine comes from. So something going on in that area of your home and family that's going to bring forward this grand trine. And how's that gonna play out, Jenny?
Well, essentially, what we're looking at with this grand trine of water is just this idea of suddenly becoming more aware of your emotional layers, like your emotions really bobbling up to the surface, your feelings, really getting in touch with the feeling space. So moving out of the head, out of the thinking processes and into the feeling space of the body and your intuition and so on. So for those of you with Leo rising and with any of the fire signs rising, it's really coming from these more hidden layers, the behind the scene layers of your being, your subconscious, your unconscious, your that kind of space where you encounter other people and you're not quite sure where you end and they begin and all that messiness. That there's there's that piece, and so that's where you as a Leo rising person, like you have a lot of feelings in these kind of liminal places. And so I really think that that's what is bubbling up. And, the Scorpio place in the fourth house, that's the trigger. So that's where you as a Leo rising person are coming to grips with your really deep emotion that has to do with all the things Laurie said, the place that you live, but really just the emotional foundations of your personality are also in the fourth house.
Mm.
So there's an intensity here that you have an opportunity to really come to grips with, because this is powerful. This is very potent. And as a Leo rising person, you're showing up with this Leo magnanimity. So it really goes with this depth, but you have to own it. So
Mm.
this period of time is about you coming to terms with those emotions, owning them, treating them with the respect that they deserve, understanding that you have a lot of care and kindness, where the 12th house is, that are part of your spirituality. This idea of loving kindness, part of your spirituality. And then where you have Saturn in Pisces, this is your ability to hold space for other people's, grief, other people's suffering, other people's intense problems. You have the capacity, you've been developing that capacity with Saturn there for the last couple of years. But this grand trine is kind of just showing you all these things together. That this incredible resource you have, this incredible emotional anchoring that you have as a Leo rising person. So yeah, it's pretty rad.
Pretty rad. How do you think that would play out for somebody?
And it will. Yeah, you go. Sorry, I
Yeah,
think
I'm
that will.
just thinking about it, like some trigger in the home life
Mm.
really being supported by all that you've been learning around developing compassion for other people and your own expansion of understanding of your unconscious. It's like, yeah, they really do come together in a powerful way of holding your emotional state and really finding that anchoring. This is
Mhm.
really the purpose of this period of time is to find your emotional anchoring.
Yes. And it feels with all these water signs, it's like you're finding where you feel held. Where do you feel held and supported emotionally? And then how can you offer that nourishing out to other people? That's really what this trine is doing. It's
I
pretty cool.
love that Pisces in the eighth house and
Yeah.
Saturn moving through there. Anyone with Leo rising is just in such a process of learning compassion for others.
Yeah.
That's really lovely. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. So let's carry on then to Virgo rising. Okay, well, let's just start at the beginning. And the beginning is that we're talking about the period of time that's October 20th to October 29th. And we're talking about this time because the sun moves into Scorpio on October 22nd. And you also have Mercury and Mars together in Scorpio. They're forming a conjunction on October 20th. So, all of that to say that these are symbols that are really bringing to light your mindset, your action, your third house of communication. Now, I always think the third house is interesting because there's a lot to it. I mean, it is your communication. At its core, it represents your immediate environment. So you can think about, when you're a baby, the siblings in your immediate environment. That's why it's siblings. As an adult, your neighborhood, the people around you, the corner store, because it also brings in, these casual contacts in your life, these acquaintances, the person who delivers your mail, the cashier at the store, and so on and so forth. So it really has a lot to do with your immediate environment. And having Scorpio here is really interesting because it's really bringing this intensity into casual contact, and I think, the benefit of that is bringing these deep layers of emotion into just your day-to-day conversations. And I think there's a tremendous amount of value to that. So that's what all these things together in Scorpio are highlighting for a Virgo rising person. And I mean, and that's kind of the beginning. And those things form a grand trine to Jupiter and Saturn, or that are also both at the end of water signs. And so, yeah, what do you think this is bringing up? I mean, you may know somebody with Virgo rising, so.
Might. I really think it's interesting thinking about, I just love thinking about these three areas where water is. And
Mhm.
with this grand trine, really highlighting these areas. When we're looking at the third house, the seventh house, the 11th house, we're looking at the social houses. So at this time, you're really able to see the importance, the emotional importance of your social life. And something that's occurring in that third house, something that's occurring in your immediate environment and your connection with the people in your immediate environment is allowing you to deepen your understanding of the emotional connection to a partner or individuals in your life, as well as to the larger community. So these social areas are where your emotions really bubble up. So it's really important during this time. The whole reason that we're talking about this grand trine is because allowing yourself to go deep, to kind of fall into and absorb all this emotion that comes at you from these areas is really going to anchor you for the days and months ahead. There's an anchoring of your emotional nature. There's a way in which this is going to really connect you. And for those with Virgo rising, it's such a social piece.
Yes. I love all the things that you've said about this and those connections. And it also, makes me think about just this is about asking for what you need, like understanding deeply what you need emotionally and saying it and asking from your partners and asking from your community, hey, I need support here. I need some nourishment, I need some support. It really is about being brave, which is Scorpio, the bravery of speaking of your own vulnerabilities and asking for what you need.
We're
I mean,
just
it's
taking
not easy, right? What was that?
I said we're just taking it.
Yeah, well, that depends on the rest of the chart. It's a different conversation. Um,
Yeah.
but also what I like about this too is it brings to mind the keyword of resilience, the emotional resilience to deal with what's coming up, and so this time period for all of us, but for Virgo rising, it's about leaning into your social relationships as a source of resilience, and keeping you connected to those emotions. I mean, there's really nothing more powerful than that, especially when you think about all of the change going on in the world.
This is
It's just
great.
having, yeah.
This is great. Can I be personal here for a second?
Oh, please do.
This is really, it's just so awesome because it's during this period of time, I'm teaching this death and dying course here
Awesome.
in Belfast. And
Perfect.
it is so much like bringing my voice to connect with people, the community, and yeah, it's a very emotional.
Nice.
I love that. I love that.
Cool. Now I want to go back and do mine.
Okay.
All right.
We should
Cool. Okay.
always we should always do that when it comes to
Oh
ours. We
God.
should always give some little tidbit personal. I don't know if people would want to hear that or if they'd just be like, oh,
Well, it personalizes it.
right.
Okay. Well, let's move on there to our next sign, which is Libra.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, so for those of you with Libra rising, let's think about this for a minute. We are talking about October, but basically we've zeroed in on the period of time from October 20th to October 29th. And during that period of time, a bunch of different things happen. The sun moves into Scorpio. It's been in Libra, which is an intellectual sign. And now it's going into a deeply emotional sign of Scorpio, intensity of Scorpio. So, for those of you with Libra rising, this brings the sun, the warmth and the light and the attention of the sun into your second house. The second house is the area of the chart that brings up issues of money, resources, and our own sense of ourselves, of our self-worth. Now, the other thing that's happening here is that Mars and Mercury come together also in Scorpio. So there's an action that happens or something that's spoken about, some trigger that occurs within the area of your money, resources, self-worth that triggers this grand trine, which is what we are here to talk about, is this water grand trine that just brings in the necessity for each of us to really go into a deeply emotional space and allow that to anchor us. Now, when we bring in the whole grand trine, these trine aspects, 120 degrees, are a free flow of energy. So whatever happens in that area of money and resources is just flowing out and in from these other areas. So I've just kind of gone around in circles with what I've talked about. You want to bring in the trine itself, Jenny?
No, this is great. You're bringing up some great things. And it's really interesting to think about as a Libra rising person that once again, we're in a position where your way of meeting your material needs, so your job, your workplace, your routines that help get you to work, your profession, all of these things, your financial status, all of those things are where all the emotions are coming up from. And on one hand, we're not used to thinking about our material needs being connected to our emotions, but of course they are. I mean, who doesn't have a feeling about our financial problems? Who doesn't have a feeling about, I really want to lose some weight or gain some weight, or God, I really shouldn't have 4 cups of coffee. I mean, who doesn't have those kinds of, things? I mean, of course, there's an emotional connection here. So that's what this grand trine is illuminating. But what it's doing is it's showing us how these emotions are actually a profound resource. And I've been thinking about just like that, it gives you this amazing emotional resilience too. So you're getting in touch with these feelings, and rather than thinking that feelings are, a problem, or they're so unreliable, or this or that, you're actually learning how to trust your feelings, how to be in relationship with your feelings. And so the fact that they're coming up during this, with your material needs, is actually, I mean, it's helpful. It's helping you see, where you have, I don't know, deep emotional connections.
Mhm.
So that's what this trine together is kind of bringing up.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
mhm. And I guess you can think of this, I mean, the Scorpio is the trigger point.
Right,
So,
right. Something triggering. This could have to do with, fears of losing a job or, any number of things can trigger this emotional response. And the important thing that I think we're saying is allow yourself to go there. Don't try to move away from it. Allow yourself to go deep into the feelings because they've got something important to teach you that is going to help anchor your emotions for the period of time ahead.
yeah. So, I mean, in a nutshell, it's lean into the care that you get at work, your work colleagues, you know, um, lean into bringing empathy to your interactions, like to your daily kind of routines, and bring a softness and empathy there. And that's what's going to help you move forwards, and being able to open up to deeper self love for yourself.
Right. Very good. Okay.
Okay,
Are we ready?
we are. Thank Okay, so for those of you with Scorpio rising, let's just start with the fact that we are talking about the period of time from October 20th, when Mars conjuncts Mercury in Scorpio, and October 29th. And the sun goes from Libra to Scorpio on October 22nd. So as you can see, there's a big highlight of Scorpio happening around that time. So let's just start with the beginning. I mean, as a Scorpio rising person, that means that you're walking around with a intense emotions as your kind of your guide. This is the path that you're walking. And these planets moving into your first house are really just illuminating the intense emotions that you either are aware of and you're carrying around and you're like, yes, or maybe are tucked a little bit beneath the surface that you're not quite aware of. So no matter what happens here, we are looking at a period of time that's really letting you see these really deep, intense feelings that you may have on just as you walk around the world. So that's not a very easy placement to have, Scorpio rising. I always think of it as a lot of sensitivity as you're moving. So I think that that's the first part of this. Now, as you're dealing with this, oh my God, I am pretty intense, aren't I? Sort of feelings. um, there is a grand trine going from Mercury and Mars to both Saturn and Jupiter, and they're trining each other. So this is really just bringing to light these powerful feelings, and this is a time to allow those feelings to come to the surface and to see them as a resource for your anchoring.
Hmm.
So, yeah, what do you have to add?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like something occurs, some way in which you need to express some of this intensity of your emotions with that conjunction of Mars and Mercury. There's something that has to be expressed about how deep your emotions are. And
Mm,
there's a real ability to tap into your the sensitivity you have in regards to your understanding of other cultures, other people. Your whole worldview is comes through a filter of tenderness toward others. I don't know how else to say it, but there's a way in which you view the world that really supports your own emotions as well. And then the other piece of the sensitivity that you offer through your gifts of creativity.
mm,
So, these are really personal houses, aren't they? The first house, the fifth house, the ninth house. These are where you hold your most emotional depths and sensitivity, your creativity, your understanding of the big world, and who you are in it.
mm.
Yeah, you're a very, very sensitive person that sometimes would rather everybody didn't see that. And
Yeah,
yet, right now, with this conjunction and the sun there, you can't really hide it. And I think that might be part of what might occur during this intense period of this grand trine is you can't really hide that sensitivity. And you really have to embrace it because it is really allowing you, there's some way in which allowing yourself to show and feel all that sensitivity is going to really anchor you in a way that's really helpful when we get into more of the heady intellectual stuff on the other side of it.
yeah.
Did that make sense the way, I don't know if it made sense the way I said.
Yes. Yeah. And you reminded me, like in the beginning, I kind of forgot to kind of say that, we have the sun moving out of Libra, and then we have this other, air grand trine earlier, and all of that to say for Scorpio rising person that, yeah, we're moving out of that intellectual space. We're moving out of the head and down into the body and the emotions. But what I find fascinating about the Scorpio rising chart in particular is that you have, Libra, behind the scenes to do with your kind of more psychic abilities. So you have this kind of interesting interplay between the thinking space and the feeling space anyway. Like you have an ability as Scorpio rising with these intense feelings. You also have this ability to intellectualize
Mm,
these more kind of emotional seeming places, where Libra is and where Gemini is and where Aquarius is. You're able to kind of get a little space from some of those emotions when they're coming from other people. But when they're yours, things get a little more dense. Things get a little more, harder to see. It's hard to see, your own first house. It's kind of like trying to look at the nose on your face, like so I love what you said actually about, I think you said it very well, like that this is the time to embrace
yeah.
these emotions that you have, and that yes, you are sensitive, but you're also powerful because you're in touch with these emotions, and you can, I think about a piece of seaweed, being anchored to the seafloor and kind of buffeting, with the emotion. Like you have the capacity to do that, to be withstand a lot of buffeting essentially. And
Mhm.
so that's what I hope that this time period can show you, is this resourcefulness, this anchoring that you kind of innately have as a Scorpio rising person.
Yeah. And
So
you really have been learning an awfully lot about how to show up with your emotions, how to give of yourself. This has been a lot of learning over the last few years, how to give of yourself and understand bigger world pictures as well from a emotional space.
and share your beliefs about being kind
Yeah.
to other people, where Jupiter is in your, up there in Cancer. I mean, your beliefs about being kind and also protective, and tender to people. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. So
Interesting.
let's carry on now to Sagittarius rising.
Okay, so if you have Sagittarius rising, we are talking about October, but we're basically zeroing in on one period of time between October 20th and October 29th. And during that period of time, we have a conjunction between Mercury and Mars happening in Scorpio and the sun moving into Scorpio. So the sun has been in Libra, which is an intellectual sign, and it's moving into Scorpio, which is a deeply emotional sign. Now, for you with Sagittarius rising, you kind of show up in the world like you're the great explorer and you're kind of seem to be pretty cheerful on the surface. Right below the surface, your unconscious holds a lot of deeply intense emotional material. And there's something in that area that is bubbling up and demanding some sort of action at this period of time. When Mars and Mercury conjunct, they come together. There's something, some action, some words that have to be spoken, or and it's 12th house. So it might all be happening behind the scenes. Nobody else might even know about it. But there's some deep, deep emotions that you're made quite aware of. That triggers this whole grand trine that happens, which is a free flow of emotional energy. And we tend to, we're living busy lives, and deep emotions bubbling up might be the very thing we don't think we have time to deal with. It's like, oh, keep that away from me. But it's really important at this time to slow ourselves down and allow ourselves to embrace this period of deep, deep emotional connection. Because this trine, this grand trine, is really going to anchor us for what's coming next, which is more intellect. But we really want to understand and deepen our understanding and our connection to our emotions. Use this time to do that. Now, the Grand Trine itself brings in other areas of your life that are being triggered by this hidden thing that happens. So I'm going to let Jennie talk about the other areas, see where that brings us.
Okay, yeah. So it's interesting thinking about this grand trine together. And so as a Sagittarius rising person, what this means is that all of these intense emotions are really bubbling up kind of behind the scenes. They're bubbling up from your interactions with other people. So this is where Jupiter and Cancer is. There's these, this is like those, when you have that kind of intense conversation where you suddenly discover you're not really on the same page as someone else, and maybe your values are a little bit different, or maybe you have an argument with your spouse about money and how the money should be, go to this or that. Those are the kinds of things that happen in the eighth house. But with Jupiter here, you have a big capacity to bring a lot of tenderness. Or I should say with Cancer here, I'm sorry. You have a lot of ability to bring tenderness to these difficult conversations. And during this grand trine, this is a resource. This is where you kind of get to watch yourself and notice, the consideration that you do try to bring all the time to other people. And then the other piece of the grand trine is really coming up through your family life. So this is the kindness and empathy that you have towards those, people in your family. It might also represent tenderness you have to your actual home or land that you feel really connected with. Those are also places where you can get those really tender feelings that are popping up. So anyway, those things all together are what's really showing up. And this is a time to embrace the colorful nature of these emotions that are coming up. This is a time to recognize, how powerful your intuition is, and that your gut instinct is really strong. And that also, I like to think about how our emotions are part of the most ancient part of our brain, the limbic system. So these are very old ways of navigating our environment, of navigating the world around us, and in particular, navigating these very emotional spaces that other people bring to us as well. So that's what this Grand Trine is doing. It's kind of in a way, it's like, I know it's a good word, keyword for Sagittarius. It's liberating you to accept your powerful emotions, to see how important they are, that you can bring this tenderness, because Sagittarius can be a little tactless at times too. So this is where you get to kind of bring in this much more, nourishing sort of energy. So that's how I see it all together.
Yeah. I really like thinking about, something deep within,
Mm.
the ability to possibly bring that out into conversation during this grand trine with the family members, the whoever that Jupiter in the eighth house represents in this particular moment, that there's an ability to navigate deep conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you think about it being Mercury and Mars, this is like bringing this into your mindset and then making it into an action
Right.
that you can then do. So, I mean, the two together it is like a conversation,
Yeah.
is the ability to share deep emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I like
Cool.
that. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, let's carry on to
Oops.
Capricorn rising. Those of you who have Capricorn rising, well, let's just start here with the idea that the sun is moving from Libra to Scorpio on October 22nd, and that this whole picture we're painting for you takes place between October 20th and October 29th. And so what's happening here is the sun in its move into Scorpio is bringing the attention from the kind of cerebral, like harmonious mental space of Libra and dropping you into the deep, deep emotion of Scorpio. And for those of you with Capricorn rising, that's taking you out of the kind of mental zone of your workplace and your career and your social reputation and dropping you into the intensity that arises when you're involved in community, when you're involved in these group situations that are in public, that are out there. So this could be like the yoga class that you go to, or the protest that you're showing up for. I mean, those are places where these intense emotions are arising. And Mercury and Mars are together here in Scorpio. This is a conjunction on October 20th. And that's just kind of bringing in, this idea that this is a time for you to both kind of take on board, how you're feeling, and think about, even though you're talking about feelings, think about how you want to communicate and act on what is occurring to you. So that's kind of the action here. That's what's going on, during this time period. And also, because Mercury and Mars are forming a grand trine to Saturn and Jupiter, both in late water signs, we really have this opportunity to look at emotions and how they're coming up, look at our feelings and observe how they're coming up. And for you with Capricorn rising, they're coming up in your very social spaces.
Hmm.
So, what do
Hmm.
you think, Laurie? How does
Yeah,
that?
it's interesting to see this. With Capricorn rising, you show up in the world like all serious and authoritative and ambitious and all those things. And yet when it comes to your social interactions, that's where your emotions are held. That's where you really become very emotional, is in your social interactions. So something occurring in the community space, that's kind of something that's really deepening an intensity of emotion that probably needs to be acted upon in some way, to be talked about, that really brings in uh, the the ways that you deal with individual people, your partners, you know, yeah, one-on-one interactions. There's a lot of tenderness you bring to those areas, and your ability to use your voice and navigate the neighborhood, uh yeah, neighborhood people, siblings, all of that. Those are the areas, those social areas are what's really being activated by whatever occurs in community.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of lost myself in the middle of that. My mind went somewhere else. But what do you have to throw back in there? I kind of got lost. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, it's good. I know where you're going with it. I mean, really what we're talking about is the idea that we have all these social interactions that maybe we want to believe are know, maybe a little superficial and kind of quick moving and whatever. But when you're Capricorn rising, you have these deep emotions associated with those social relationships. These are not just simple, these are not superficial areas. These are places where you want deep bonding, you know, where you really want to connect with people. And with this grand trine, what it's showing you is that you have this profound ability to be very tender and also protective and loving in your partnerships, your one-on-one encounters. And then you also have an ability to be incredibly empathetic to the common person, people you may not even know at all. I mean, it could be your sibling, but it also could be that neighbor that you don't know, and maybe you don't like their lawn signs or whatever. And you can bring in this like just ability to bring in empathy. And so that's what this time period is bringing to light. And the trigger of the intensity of Scorpio in those group encounters is what's letting you see all of these emotions that you bring to these other areas, and that you actually bring a great deal of resilience and resourcefulness to those relationships precisely because you allow for the emotional bonding. And that's what this time period is showing you and inviting you to really take advantage of and to embrace that.
Yeah.
So I kind of love it.
Yeah, it is interesting to have it in all these social areas and this real need to allow yourself to go deeply and feel all the feelings. And, because it's a trine, we think of it as, oh, it's all positive, and it's not necessarily. It's a free flow. It may feel very deep and painful even, but it's really important to just allow yourself to embrace the feelings, to allow the feelings to anchor you in your humanity, in how you approach these social areas of your life.
And I'm glad you brought it up too, that it might not be easy, because this can also be like, you know, watershed moment, a moment where you cry with the person delivering your mail, you know, or where you have this really deeper understanding without words with your partner about something you're very sad about, grieving. So that's part of it too. And it's this invitation, you know, to let it flow. And that's a good point too, because there's a very fine line between joy and grief, you know, and probably most of you had those encounters where you're just shocked by that fine line. It's not an everyday encounter. It's more of a, you know, an unusual encounter, but it definitely is something that you discover. So yeah, that's what this is about. But boy, you could really get some deep bonding in your social relationships. This is something we need more of, folks, like right now.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So okay,
I
good.
think I think we're good. I think we're ready to move on to Aquarius rising.
Okay.
So, if you have Aquarius rising, we are talking about October, but basically we are zeroing in on the period of time between October 20th and October 29th, because this seems like a really significant time for us to think about. There's some very interesting things that happen here. First of all, we want to note that the sun is moving from from Libra to Scorpio during this period of time. So we're moving from the focal point. The sun is the focus, it brings the light and the warmth. We're moving from an intellectual sign, Libra, it's an air sign that is really, yeah, an intellectual sign trying to keep us diplomatic and above board and thinking clearly. And it's bringing us from that area right into deep, intense emotion, which is Scorpio. Mercury and Mars have conjuncted here just before the sun moves in. The sun joins them and really focusing more attention on this area. For you with Aquarius rising, this is putting your attention on your career or your social reputation. It's the highest point in the chart, the most social area. So that's where your focus is. That's where something is triggering a response, an emotional response. When Mars and Mercury come together, there's some action that needs to be taken, some action of your voice, using your voice. Something needs to be said or thought directly and clearly about that is very emotional and very intense and very public. And that triggers the Grand Trine, which is a very interesting configuration. It brings three trines together. A trine is 120 degrees. It's a free flow of energy. We tend to think of trines as positive, but when we look at a Grand Trine, we need to understand that it's just a flow. It's a free flow of energy. Nothing gets in the way. So we really need to be ready to ride this wave. So what's being triggered here in terms of the whole trine itself, Jennie?
Right. Well, what it's doing is it's really bringing out your emotions in all of the areas of life that have to do with your material needs. So this is how you earn money. This is like how you eat, your sort of habits that keep everything going. This is your work life, whether you have a job or more of a vocation or some other way you show up in public. That's what it's bringing up. It's really kind of bringing up the fact that we have a lot of feelings when it comes to our livelihoods and money and whether or not we're going to eat. Right. So, I mean, it's actually no brainer that there's a strong emotional connection here. It's just not something that we talk about in polite society, but but it really is about that. And that's what, as an Aquarius rising person, what it's doing for you is it's just letting you see the emotional layers. It's letting you see the emotions that you pour into these parts of your life, that you pour into your routines and your habits and your practices, and the emotions that you pour into yourself as you value yourself, and what it takes to earn money, what it takes to earn a paycheck. I mean, that's where you're really seeing this, these emotions that are coming up. And so it's really an opportunity to make that connection, to understand the emotional investments that you make
Mm.
in all of these things that you do, and to really truly value those and recognize them for the incredible resource and source of anchoring that they are for you. I mean, it's not just your material needs, it's the emotional satisfaction, the emotional nourishment that you're getting from these areas of life. So that's kind of what this period of time is really letting you see. It's really showing you those layers, which I think is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about just the that Saturn moving through the second being triggered. It's almost like, this could be a really important time for you to pay attention to what ways in which you could use your finances to support your emotional expansion in your career.
Mm,
I don't know, there's some link there that I can feel. Um,
yeah. Well, I
a-
do think. Oh, go ahead.
allowing just allowing your emotions to dictate for once. We're told
Mm,
never to let our emotions dictate how we spend money. Right? And I think for someone with Aquarius rising, with that Saturn moving through the second house, you've learned a lot in the last few years around how you value yourself and how you show up and spend money and how your emotions are attached to that. And there may be some really positive use of leaning into some need. Yeah,
yeah, and I think
I don't
I
know.
love that you're saying this because I think this could be a real healing opportunity for an Aquarius rising person because you're an air rising, so you sort of get this, you know, I don't know, this idea maybe that everything's about kind of on the social level, but really what Laurie's saying, like this idea of letting your emotions, trusting your intuition. I mean,
Yeah,
trusting your feeling,
yeah,
trusting your gut,
right,
to what move to next make to do with your
right.
work. And also trusting that where Jupiter is, you have a lot of tenderness and kindness to offer here and also protection. Cancer has that as well. So there's something in that I really, really like.
Yeah, I feel like if something comes up, like some idea of a program you should take that would really support your business, and you would normally stop yourself because of money, really listen to your intuition. There is
Mm,
something about that in here. I
yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
can feel something bubbling in my brain about this.
Yeah, and I mean also just, back to it's the original point of the conversation where those things triggering something to do with your professional or public life.
Right.
And so that's the original source of, let's say, maybe the irritant that makes you go, wait a minute, and that brings in these other players.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
cool.
Okay.
All right, whoever you are, Aquarius rising, you should schedule an appointment with Laurie. I think she's got something
There's
for you.
something, there's
Yeah.
something, there's something going on in my mind here about
I can
Aquarius.
see it.
I'm not quite sure. I'd have to, yeah, dig in a little deeper.
I'll have to sign up for an appointment with you, Laurie.
Okay.
Okay, so now we come to Pisces rising. So for those of you with Pisces rising, let's start from the beginning, which is the sun is moving or has moved from Libra to Scorpio. And also Mercury and Mars are in Scorpio. We are zoning in, like zooming in on the period of time that takes place between October 20th and October 29th, rather than the whole month of October. So that's the period of time in which the sun moves into Scorpio and these two planets are conjunct in Scorpio. So what this is doing is it's moving out of the kind of mental, like balance, like inclusive sign of Libra, and dropping everything into those deep emotions, the undercurrents, the emotional undercurrents that are driving everything. So that's what is being illuminated. For you, Pisces, that is landing in your ninth house. So you're going out of that eighth house of dealing with other people's stuff on an intellectual level and then dropping into the profound emotions that you have that regard your worldview, your kind of overall life philosophy is what we're talking about here. And it's the accumulation of all of your experiences. And as a Pisces rising person, you probably have a lot of different emotions that you over the years that you can think about that construct your worldview. So that's in essence what we're talking about at this time period or during this time period. There's something that's coming up about this. There's something that's informing your mindset or that's demanding you take some kind of action to do with this deeper place of Scorpio. So that's kind of what's going on, sort of October 20th, especially. And then these planets both go on to form a grand trine over that period of time. So, through October 29th, we have this grand trine in water. So, grand trine is this closed circuit of energy. And in this case, being in water, it's all about emotions and feelings that are kind of just below the surface. So, Laurie, what do you think about that? What's the deal here?
Well, I'm just thinking about, yeah, some action, something triggering something in your worldview, something that you hear on the news, something going on in politics, something from your education, possibly, but something that is activating your need to really find compassion for yourself
Mm.
and tenderness in how you give of yourself. There's some way that you really have to allow yourself to go deeply into your emotional state. And for you, those are the houses that you hold your emotions in. Your first house, which is the most personal, it's about yourself. You've been learning a lot about yourself in the past year or so, and really working hard to develop self-compassion, probably. And this is a time where whatever's being triggered in that ninth house through your higher understanding is triggering that need to lean into self-compassion and that need to, on the other hand, the fifth house, lean into the yeah, tenderness and protection of people you love or your creative processes. A grand trine is a lovely thing. It is, however, not always only positive. It doesn't tell us really whether it's positive or not positive. It just tells us that there's a lot of energy, there's a free flow of energy, and what really you need to do is allow it to move you, allow yourself to feel that self-compassion, that tenderness of love, and that deep intensity of the processes that the world is going through, and really allow yourself to feel all of that deep feeling. And that is what's going to really support your process going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and you probably kind of grasped from what Laurie's saying that all three of these houses, the first, the fifth, and the ninth, they all have to do with your identity.
Yeah.
They're all different extensions of the identity. So where Saturn is, it's the self, and then just as Laurie said, the fifth house is how you give of yourself. And then the ninth is your philosophy, your worldview, your sort of operating manual with how you conduct yourself as you walk through the world. So all those things, this is really letting you know who you are as an emotional person, who you are as an emotional being, what you have to offer people through the feeling space. And the thing that comes through to me for this one too is music. Like if you're not sure what's going on, this period of time is a great time to put on some music through these days and move. And as you said, Laura, like music that moves you. Music that is a great thing to think about when it comes to bringing up emotions. And as a Pisces rising person, I mean, I imagine that music can just bring you right in touch with those deeper emotions. It brings you right in touch with compassion for the collective, the desire to, maybe care for the children of the world. I mean, it kind of brings in these big things. And the trigger point being the Scorpio in your ninth house, like really wanting to do something about the problems in the world, wanting to do something about the suffering, wanting to do something about other people's trauma and wounding. I mean, I think that's what brings in for me, and just that music is powerful. Like I went to a music festival this summer and it was crazy how many different kinds of people were there, like all across the political spectrum, and everybody was there to listen to music. So it was really interesting. But anyway, that's what comes up for me because Pisces is related to music.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but this is a good time to open up,
Yeah.
embrace all the feels.
Yeah. Embrace it all and allow it to anchor you for the coming days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think
Let's
we've covered
close
it.
it up.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for being here, and we'll do it
Yes.
again.
Thank you, Laurie, and thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.